The rattlesnake's warning came too late for Samuel Dawson to react, his weathered hand already reaching for the fallen toy when the viper struck from beneath the porch steps. It was June 1876, exactly 1 year since cholera had taken his beloved wife Rebecca, leaving him alone with 4 babies under the age of 3 on the unforgiving Wyoming frontier. Samuel stumbled back, clutching his wrist as the venom began its deadly work. "Damn it all," he muttered, already feeling the burn spreading up his arm. He glanced toward the small cabin where his children napped, blissfully unaware that they might soon be truly orphaned. His eldest, 2-year-old twins James and Joseph, and the younger ones, 18-month-old Emma and 6-month-old Daniel, would have no one if the poison took him. He staggered toward the cabin, knowing he needed to bind the wound and ride for help, though the nearest neighbor was 5 miles away and the doctor in town a full 15. The venom worked quickly, making his vision blur and his legs wobble beneath him. Samuel collapsed onto the porch steps, trying to summon the strength to stand again. The homestead stretched before him, a modest cabin, a small barn with 2 horses and 3 milk cows, the vegetable garden Rebecca had started that he'd managed to keep alive. All of it would be lost if he couldn't survive this. That's when he saw her, a woman on horseback, approaching his property, her figure shimmering in the heat like a mirage. For a delirious moment, he thought it was Rebecca returned to him, but as she drew closer, he saw she was a stranger with auburn hair escaping from beneath her bonnet, riding with the confidence of someone who knew these lands. "Hello there," she called, then must have noticed his distress because she urged her horse faster. "Sir, are you hurt, Rattlesnake?" Samuel managed, his voice strained. "My children are inside, asleep." The woman dismounted in one fluid motion, tying a loaf of bread wrapped in cloth to her saddle before rushing to his side. "I'm Olivia Bennett," she said, quickly examining the wound with capable hands. "I'm the new school teacher in Prosperity. Your neighbor, Mrs. Holloway, mentioned you might need help with your little ones, so I brought some bread as an introduction." "Samuel Dawson," he replied, fighting to stay conscious. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Bennett, though I wish it were under better circumstances." "Call me Olivia," she said, already tearing a strip from her petticoat to bind his wrist. "And you're lucky I'm here, Mr. Dawson. My father was a doctor in Boston. I've treated snakebites before." Through the haze of pain, Samuel watched as Olivia pulled a small knife from her boot and, without hesitation, made a precise incision over the fang marks. Her movements were sure and practiced as she extracted what venom she could. "I need to get you to a doctor," she said, her green eyes serious as she tied the bandage tight. "But your children," a small cry from inside the cabin interrupted her, followed by the patter of tiny feet. The cabin door creaked open and James peered out, his blonde hair tousled from sleep, his eyes widening at the sight of the stranger. "Papa hurt?" the little boy asked, his bottom lip trembling. "Papa will be fine," Olivia assured him with a gentle smile. "I'm Miss Bennett. Would you like to help me take care of your father?" Samuel tried to protest, to tell her there was no use, that the venom was spreading too quickly, but Olivia hushed him. "I've seen worse bites than this, Mr. Dawson. You're not dying today, not when you have 4 little ones who need you." She turned to James. "Are your brothers and sister awake too?" James nodded solemnly. "Good. I need your help, brave boy. Can you watch them while I help your father to his bed?" With surprising strength, Olivia helped Samuel to his feet and guided him inside the cabin. The interior was neat, but showed signs of a man struggling alone, clothing waiting to be mended, toys scattered about, dishes piled in the wash basin. The other children were sitting up in their shared bedroom, Joseph, Emma's face streaked with tears, and baby Daniel fussing in a hand-carved cradle. All of them stared wide-eyed at the stranger supporting their father. "Children, this is Miss Bennet," Samuel said weakly as Olivia helped him onto his bed. "She's going to help us for a little while." "I'll need to ride for the doctor," Olivia said, her brow furrowed in concern. "But I can't leave you all alone." "Mrs. Holloway," Samuel suggested, his words slurring slightly. "Send one of the boys to fetch her." Olivia shook her head. "She's gone to her sister's in Cheyenne. That's why she asked me to check on you." She thought for a moment. "The bread," she said suddenly. "I brought medicine in my saddlebag with the bread. It won't cure you, but it might slow the venom until I can get help." She disappeared and returned moments later with her saddlebag and the loaf of bread. She pulled out a small bottle and measured drops into a cup of water. "Drink this," she instructed, holding it to Samuel's lips. "It will help with the pain and might slow the spread." Samuel obeyed, grimacing at the bitter taste. As the liquid coursed down his throat, he found himself studying Olivia's face, her determined expression, the light dusting of freckles across her nose, the kindness in her eyes. If she was an angel come to usher him to the afterlife, at least she was a beautiful one. "The bread," she said, breaking off pieces for the children. "Eat, little ones. I baked it myself this morning." The twins approached cautiously, accepting the offering while Olivia cradled baby Daniel and managed to coax Emma closer with her gentle voice. "I need to get you to a doctor," she said to Samuel. "But I can't leave the children alone, and you can't ride in this condition." "We'll manage," Samuel insisted, though his vision was darkening at the edges. Olivia's expression turned resolute. "No, I won't let these children lose another parent. I'm going to have to bring the doctor here." 15 miles. Samuel protested. "I've ridden farther in worse conditions," she replied, settling Daniel back in his cradle. "I'll go as soon as I get the children settled. James and Joseph can be my big helpers and watch their sister and brother while I'm gone." The twins, sensing the importance of their role, stood taller and nodded solemnly. Olivia moved with surprising efficiency, feeding the children, changing the baby, and preparing a simple stew from provisions she found in the kitchen. She kept checking on Samuel, making him drink water and more of her medicine, rebandaging his wound when needed. "You're a godsend, Miss Bennet," Samuel murmured during one of his more lucid moments. "Save your strength, Mr. Dawson," she replied softly. "And it's Olivia, remember." As twilight approached, Olivia prepared for her journey. "I've fed the children and put on a pot of stew that will stay warm for them. I've changed Daniel and put Emma down for a nap. The twins understand they are to stay inside and only go out to the necessary if they must." "Thank you," Samuel whispered, the pain making it difficult to speak. "Why would you do all this for strangers?" Olivia's eyes softened. "Because no one did it for me when I needed it most." She squeezed his hand. "I'll be back with the doctor before dawn. Fight this, Mr. Dawson. Your children need you." With that, she was gone, the sound of her horses' hooves fading into the distance as Samuel drifted in and out of consciousness, the faces of his children appearing like guardian angels in his fevered dreams. True to her word, Olivia returned before dawn with Dr. Parkinson, a gruff older man who immediately set to work treating Samuel properly. The venom had spread, but the quick initial treatment by Olivia and her mysterious medicine had likely saved his life. "You're lucky, Dawson," the doctor said as he packed up his bag after administering proper antivenom and additional treatments. "If not for Miss Bennet's quick thinking and knowledge of herbal remedies, I'd be arranging your funeral instead of prescribing bed rest." Samuel glanced at Olivia, who was warming milk for the children's breakfast. "I owe you my life." "You owe me nothing," she replied, though a flush colored her cheeks, "though I would appreciate knowing you'll recover fully." "He will, Doctor," Parkinson assured them, But he'll need rest and help with those young ones for at least a week. That arm won't be much use and help with those young ones for at least a week. That arm won't be much use for a while. Samuel's heart sank. A week without being able to work meant potential ruin for his small ranch. The crops needed tending, the animals feeding, and the children constant care. "I'll stay," Olivia announced, surprising both men. "School doesn't start for another month and I've nowhere pressing to be." "I couldn't ask that of you," Samuel protested. "You didn't ask." "I offered," she replied firmly. "Besides, I've grown rather fond of your little brood in just one day." And so it was settled. Olivia moved into the small storage room that Samuel had been converting into a bedroom for the twins. She insisted she would be comfortable there, and within days, she had transformed the Dawson homestead. The cabin, which had merely been surviving under Samuel's care, began to thrive under Olivia's attention. She cleaned thoroughly, mended clothes, cooked nutritious meals, and most importantly, showered the children with the maternal affection they'd been missing. Samuel watched from his sick as Olivia sang to baby Daniel, teaching Emma to help set the table, and taking the twins on short walks to gather eggs from the chicken coop. She seemed to have endless energy and patience, even when all 4 children demanded attention at once. "You're a natural with them," Samuel commented one evening as Olivia sat in the rocking chair by the fire, darning socks while the children slept. "I always wanted a large family," she admitted, her nimble fingers continuing their work. "My parents died in a fire when I was 16. I was their only child, and suddenly I was alone in the world." "I'm sorry," Samuel said, understanding the pain of such loss all too well. "It was 7 years ago now," Olivia said, her voice soft with memory. "I trained as a teacher in Boston, but the city held too many painful memories. When I heard about the position in Prosperity, it seemed like a chance for a fresh start in a place where no one knew me or pitied me. And instead, you found yourself caring for a widower and his 4 babies," Samuel said with a rueful smile. "It's not such a terrible fate," she replied, meeting his eyes with a warmth that made his heart skip. "Your children bring me joy, Mr. Dawson." "Samuel," he corrected. "If I'm to call you Olivia, you must call me Samuel." She nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Samuel it is, then." Days passed, and Samuel grew stronger. Dr. Parkinson visited again and declared him on the mend, though he still advised another week of limited work. Samuel worried about imposing further on Olivia, but she dismissed his concerns. "I've written to the school board explaining the situation," she told him. "They were quite understanding, especially when I mentioned I was getting practical experience with potential future students." As Samuel recovered enough to move about the cabin and assist with lighter tasks, he found himself watching Olivia with increasing admiration. She approached every challenge with determination and grace, whether it was calming a colicky Daniel at 3 in the morning or figuring out how to repair a leak in the roof after a sudden summer storm. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while the children played in the yard, Samuel found the courage to ask about her past. "You mentioned your parents, but was there ever someone special in your life? A beau or a fiancé?" Olivia's hand stilled in her lap. "There was someone once. We were to be married, but after my parents died, he changed, or perhaps I did. He wanted a proper Boston wife who would host dinner parties and concern herself with society matters. I wanted something more meaningful. So you came west to find it." "I came west to find myself," she corrected gently. "Though I'll admit, teaching in a frontier town wasn't exactly what I had planned. And caring for 4 motherless children and their snake-bitten father definitely wasn't in your plans," Samuel added with a chuckle. "No," Olivia agreed, her laughter joining his. But sometimes the best things in life are unplanned. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits who had both known loss and were cautiously discovering the possibility of something new. The moment was broken by Emma toddling up the porch steps, her small hands clutching a bunch of wildflowers. "For Livia," she declared, presenting her gift with a proud smile. "Thank you, sweet girl," Olivia said, gathering Emma into her lap and accepting the flowers. "They're beautiful." Samuel watched them, his heart full. It had been so long since he'd seen his daughter this content, this trusting with anyone besides himself. All of his children had taken to Olivia as if they'd known her forever. As the second week of Olivia's stay drew to a close, Samuel found himself dreading her departure. He was well enough to resume most of his duties, though his arm still pained him when he overexerted himself. There was no reason for her to stay longer, yet he couldn't bear the thought of returning to the lonely struggle of raising his children alone. The children, too, seemed to sense the impending change. The twins grew clingy, following Olivia everywhere. Emma asked repeatedly, "Livia, stay." And even baby Daniel fussed more than usual when not in her arms. The night before she was set to leave, after the children were asleep, Samuel found Olivia sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a letter she'd received that afternoon. "Bad news?" he asked, joining her. "The school board has delayed the start of term by 2 weeks due to repairs needed on the schoolhouse," she said, folding the letter. "Apparently, summer storms caused more damage than they initially thought." "I see," Samuel said, trying to hide his relief at the thought of having her around a bit longer. "What will you do?" Olivia met his gaze steadily. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether my presence here is still welcome or needed." Samuel took a deep breath. "Olivia, you must know that you have become indispensable to us, to me and the children. These past weeks, I haven't seen them this happy since before Rebecca fell ill." "They're wonderful children," Olivia said softly. "They deserve all the happiness in the world." "So do you," Samuel replied, reaching across the table to take her hand. "And selfishly, I wish you could stay longer, not because I need help with the children or the ranch, but because having you here has made this place feel like a home again." Olivia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I've come to care for all of you more than I should." "Why shouldn't you?" Samuel asked, squeezing her hand gently. "Because I'm meant to be their teacher, not." She trailed off, unable to put words to what they both felt developing between them. "Not what?" Samuel pressed. "Not someone who might break their hearts by leaving," she finished, withdrawing her hand. "Or my own." The honesty of her admission hung between them like a fragile thread. "What if you didn't have to leave?" Samuel asked, the words escaping before he could consider their implications. Olivia's eyes widened. "Samuel, I don't mean right away," he clarified quickly. "I know we've only known each other a short time, but these weeks have shown me that life can be good again, that the children can thrive, that I can hope again." "Hope is dangerous," Olivia whispered, though something in her expression suggested she wasn't entirely opposed to the idea. "So is riding 15 miles in the dark to fetch a doctor for a man you just met," Samuel countered with a small smile. "You're not afraid of danger, Olivia Bennett." A laugh escaped her, breaking the tension. "Perhaps not the right kind of danger. Stay," Samuel said simply. "Stay for the additional 2 weeks. Give us time to figure out what this could be." Olivia was quiet for a long moment, considering. "The town will talk." "Let them," Samuel replied. "We know the truth, that you're here helping a family in need. Besides, Mrs. Holloway returns next week. She can serve as chaperone if propriety demands it." "You've thought of everything," Olivia said, a smile tugging at her lips. "Not everything," Samuel admitted. "I don't know how to thank you properly for saving my life, for caring for my children, for bringing light back into our home with that loaf of bread and your kindness." "You don't need to thank me," Olivia said. "But if you insist, perhaps you could teach me to ride better." My journey to the doctor made it clear I have much to learn about Western horsemanship. "It would be my pleasure," Samuel agreed, relieved that she seemed to be considering staying. "Though from what the doctor said, you rode like the wind that night." "Fear is a powerful motivator," she admitted. "I was terrified I wouldn't make it back in time." "Why?" Samuel asked. "You barely knew us." Olivia's expression softened. "Because the moment I saw those 4 precious children and their injured father, I knew I couldn't bear it if something happened to any of you." The simple admission touched Samuel deeply. It had been so long since anyone besides his children had cared whether he lived or died. "Then it's settled," he said. "You'll stay until school starts and I'll teach you to ride properly. It's a fair exchange." "Hardly fair," Olivia protested with a laugh. "You get child care and housekeeping and I get riding lessons. And my eternal gratitude," Samuel added with a smile. "Don't discount that, it's quite valuable." "Is it now?" Olivia asked, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Absolutely. Just ask the children. They'll tell you their papa's gratitude is worth its weight in gold, or at least in fresh baked cookies." "I see," Olivia said, pretending to consider. "Well, when you put it that way, how can I refuse?" And so Olivia stayed, and the Dawson homestead continued its transformation from a place of survival to a place of joy. Samuel kept his promise to teach her riding, and Olivia proved a quick study, soon handling his gentlest mare with confidence. The children blossomed under the consistent care of 2 adults. Baby Daniel took his first steps, toddling precariously from Samuel to Olivia as they cheered him on. Emma began speaking in complete sentences, often mimicking Olivia's precise way of speaking. The twins, always adventurous, found in Olivia someone who encouraged their curiosity while setting firm boundaries to keep them safe. As for Samuel and Olivia, their relationship evolved gradually, built on mutual respect and shared responsibilities. Samuel found himself looking for excuses to be near her, offering to help with dinner preparations, or suggesting evening walks to check the property. Olivia, for her part, seemed to seek his company equally, asking his opinion on books she might use in her teaching or sharing stories of her life in Boston. Mrs. Holloway returned as expected, and after observing the situation, gave her wholehearted approval. "That girl's brought life back to this place," she told Samuel privately, "and to you as well from what I can see." Samuel couldn't deny it. With Olivia's presence, he'd begun to feel like himself again, not just a grieving widower struggling to raise 4 children, but a man with hopes and dreams for the future. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset after the children were asleep, Samuel finally found the courage to speak of what had been growing between them. "I never expected to feel this way again," he admitted quietly. "After Rebecca died, I thought that part of my life was over. I would raise our children and that would be enough." Olivia's hands stilled in her lap. "And now I find myself thinking of possibilities I'd given up on," he said, turning to face her. "Olivia, I know you came here to be a teacher, to start a new life away from painful memories. I would never want to interfere with your dreams." "But," she prompted, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I've fallen in love with you," Samuel said simply. "I think I began falling the moment you appeared with that loaf of bread, ready to save a stranger and his children without hesitation." Olivia's eyes glistened in the fading light. "Samuel, you don't need to say anything now," he assured her quickly. "School starts next week, and you should have time to consider what you want. I just couldn't let you go without telling you how I feel." "I wasn't going to ask for time," Olivia said, reaching for his hand. I was going to say that I've fallen in love with you too, with you and with James and Joseph and Emma and Daniel. This past month has shown me what I truly want, and it's not just teaching in a frontier town. What is it you want? Samuel asked, hardly daring to hope. A family, she said simply. This family, if you'll have me. Samuel's heart soared. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Nothing would make me happier, but I don't want you to give up your position. You've worked hard to become a teacher. I don't intend to, Olivia replied with a smile. The school is only 3 miles away. I can ride there each day and return home in the evenings. Mrs. Holloway has already offered to help with the children while I'm teaching. You've thought of everything, Samuel said, amazed by her practicality. Not everything, she admitted. For instance, I haven't considered what people will say if the new school teacher marries so soon after arriving in town. Marries, Samuel repeated, his pulse quickening. Olivia blushed. I'm being presumptuous. I meant if no, Samuel interrupted, taking both her hands in his. No, you're not being presumptuous at all. Olivia Bennet, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife and a mother to my children? Tears spilled onto Olivia's cheeks as she nodded. Yes, Samuel. Yes, I would be proud to be your wife and their mother. Samuel drew her into his arms, his heart fuller than he'd thought possible again. When their lips met for the first time, it felt like coming home, like the piece of himself that had been missing since Rebecca's death had finally been restored, not replaced, but renewed in a different form. They agreed to a short engagement, planning to marry before the school term began. Mrs. Holloway took charge of the arrangements, spreading the word throughout the community. To Samuel's surprise, the news was met with universal approval. That Olivia Bennet is exactly what those children need, he overheard Mrs. Peterson saying at the general store. And Samuel Dawson deserves happiness after all he's been through. The wedding took place on a sunny Saturday in late August 1876, just 2 months after Olivia had first arrived with her loaf of bread. The ceremony was held in the Dawsons' front yard, with wildflowers decorating every available surface. The children were incorporated into the ceremony, the twins as ring bearers, Emma as flower girl, and Daniel held proudly by Mrs. Holloway, who dabbed at her eyes throughout the service. Olivia wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, with wildflowers in her hair instead of a veil. Samuel, cleanly shaven and dressed in his Sunday best, could hardly believe his good fortune as he watched her walk toward him on the arm of Dr. Parkinson, who had happily agreed to give her away. Dearly beloved, the preacher began, his voice carrying across the assembled neighbors and friends. We are gathered here today to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. As they exchanged their vows, Samuel thought of the strange twist of fate that had brought them together: a rattlesnake, 4 motherless children, and a loaf of bread. If any one of those elements had been different, he might never have found this second chance at happiness. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the preacher declared. You may kiss your bride. Samuel cupped Olivia's face gently, pouring all his love and gratitude into the kiss as their neighbors cheered and the children clapped excitedly. Papa, kiss Livia, Emma announced proudly, causing everyone to laugh. That's right, sweet girl, Olivia said, kneeling to embrace her. And now I'm your mama too, if that's all right with you. Emma's eyes widened. My mama? Yes, Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. I'll be mama to all of you if you'll have me. The twins rushed forward, wrapping their arms around her. Mama, they cried in unison, having understood more than anyone realized. Mrs. Holloway brought Daniel over, and he immediately reached for Olivia, babbling happily. Samuel watched, his heart so full it might burst, as his new wife embraced their children. He knew Rebecca would approve, would be grateful her babies had found a mother's love again. The celebration continued well into the evening with feasting and dancing in the yard. As twilight fell, lanterns were lit, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Samuel took Olivia's hand, leading her in a dance as their neighbors looked on approvingly. "Are you happy, Mrs. Dawson?" he asked, still marveling at the sound of her new name. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Olivia replied, her eyes shining. "I came west seeking a new beginning, but I never imagined finding a complete family." "It's not what either of us planned," Samuel acknowledged, "but sometimes life's best gifts are the ones we never thought to ask for." As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Mrs. Holloway approached the newlyweds. "I'll be taking the children for the night," she reminded them with a knowing smile. "Gives you two some privacy to start your marriage properly." Samuel felt heat rise to his face, but Olivia thanked the older woman graciously. They said goodnight to their children, promising to see them in the morning, and finally found themselves alone in the cabin that now truly felt like a home. "I have something for you," Samuel said, retrieving a small package from the bedroom. "A wedding gift." Olivia unwrapped it carefully to reveal a handcrafted wooden sign that read "The Dawsons" in beautifully carved letters. "Samuel, it's beautiful," she breathed, tracing the letters with her fingertips. "Did you make this?" "Yes," he admitted. "I've been working on it in the evenings after you went to bed. I want to hang it by the front door so everyone who comes here knows this is our family home." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "Our family. I love the sound of that." "So do I," Samuel said, drawing her into his arms. "And it's all because you walked into our lives with that loaf of bread." "The best bread I ever baked, it seems," Olivia said with a laugh. "Indeed," Samuel agreed, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "though your biscuits are a close second." Olivia laughed again, the sound filling the cabin with joy. "I love you, Samuel Dawson." "And I love you, Olivia Dawson," he replied, sealing the declaration with a kiss that promised a lifetime of happiness ahead. The days that followed settled into a rhythm that suited them all. Olivia began teaching at the schoolhouse, riding to and from town each day on her horse, which Samuel had helped her select from a nearby ranch. The children stayed with Mrs. Holloway during school hours, though the twins would soon be old enough to join Olivia in the classroom. In the evenings, they gathered as a family, sharing meals, reading stories, and creating new traditions. Samuel marveled at how naturally Olivia had stepped into the role of mother, treating each child with individual attention and genuine affection. As autumn arrived, painting the Wyoming landscape in rich golds and reds, Olivia made an announcement that filled Samuel with joy once again. "I've been feeling a bit different lately," she told him one night after the children were asleep. "Dr. Parkinson confirmed it today. We're going to have a baby, Samuel, in the spring." Samuel gathered her in his arms, overwhelmed with emotion. "A baby," he repeated in wonder. "Our baby." "Our fifth child," Olivia corrected gently. "The others are as much mine now as this one will be." Samuel nodded, understanding perfectly what she meant. The love she showed his children had never been that of a stepmother, but of a woman who had opened her heart fully to them from the first day. "You think they'll be excited?" Olivia asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "They'll be overjoyed," Samuel assured her. "Especially Emma. She's been asking for a sister since she realized she was the only girl." They shared the news with the children the next morning, and as Samuel had predicted, their reaction was one of pure excitement. A baby brother or sister. James asked, his eyes wide. "That's right," Olivia confirmed. "The baby will come in the spring when the wildflowers are blooming." "I want a sister," Emma declared, climbing onto Olivia's lap. "A brother would be better," Joseph countered, always ready to disagree with his twin. "We'll be happy with either," Samuel said diplomatically, "as long as the baby is healthy." The months passed in a blur of everyday joys and challenges. Olivia's belly grew rounder, and the children became increasingly excited about the new addition to their family. They helped prepare the nursery, offering suggestions about colors and toys the baby might like. Winter came, bringing snow that transformed the landscape into a pristine wonderland. The cabin was cozy with the fire blazing, and Samuel often found himself watching his family in quiet moments, Olivia teaching the twins to read, Emma helping with simple cooking tasks, Daniel toddling after them all with increasing confidence. In these moments, the pain of losing Rebecca seemed less sharp, transformed into a gentle ache of remembrance rather than the piercing grief that had once threatened to consume him. He knew he would always love her, would always ensure the children knew about their birth mother, but his heart had expanded to embrace this new love, this second chance at happiness. Spring arrived with its promise of renewal, melting the snow and coaxing green shoots from the earth. Olivia's time grew near, and Samuel found himself both excited and anxious. Dr. Parkinson assured them that Olivia was in excellent health, but Samuel couldn't help remembering how quickly childbirth could turn dangerous, as it had with Daniel's birth when Rebecca had hemorrhaged but survived, only to succumb to cholera months later. Olivia seemed to sense his fears. "I'm strong, Samuel," she told him one night as they lay in bed, her hand guiding his to feel the baby's movements. "And Dr. Parkinson is much closer than he was when Rebecca had the children. Everything will be fine." Samuel nodded, forcing himself to believe her. "I just can't bear the thought of losing you." "You won't," she promised, kissing him softly. "This baby and I are fighters. We'll come through this together." When her labor began on a mild April morning in 1877, Samuel sent the twins to fetch Mrs. Holloway and rode for Dr. Parkinson himself, unwilling to entrust the task to anyone else. He returned to find Olivia walking the floor of their bedroom, breathing through contractions with Mrs. Holloway's steady support. "The children?" Olivia asked as soon as she saw him. "With the Petersons," Samuel assured her. "They'll be well cared for until this is over." The labor progressed steadily throughout the day and into the evening. Samuel remained by Olivia's side, supporting her through each contraction, wiping her brow and murmuring encouragement. Dr. Parkinson pronounced everything proceeding normally, but Samuel couldn't shake his fear until, just after midnight, the cry of a newborn filled the cabin. "A girl," Dr. Parkinson announced, placing the squalling infant on Olivia's chest. "A healthy baby girl." Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she cradled their daughter. "She's perfect, Samuel. Look at her." Samuel gazed at the tiny red face, the shock of dark hair, the perfect miniature fingers, and felt his heart expand once more. "She's beautiful," he whispered, touching her cheek gently. "Just like her mother." "What will you name her?" Mrs. Holloway asked, already bustling about to clean up. Samuel and Olivia exchanged a look. They had discussed names but hadn't settled on one, wanting to see their child first. "Hope," Olivia said softly. "Hope Rebecca Dawson." Samuel's eyes filled with tears at the gesture of including Rebecca's name. "It's perfect," he agreed. "Hope, because that's what you brought back into our lives. And Rebecca, because without her, this family wouldn't exist," Olivia added, understanding as she always did exactly what was in his heart. The children met their new sister the following day, each reacting in their own way. The twins were curious but a bit hesitant, peering at the baby with matching expressions of wonder. Emma was ecstatic to finally have a sister, declaring immediately that she would help teach Hope everything she knew. Daniel, not quite 2 years old, was less impressed. more interested in the cake Mrs. Holloway had brought than in the sleeping infant. As spring gave way to summer, the Dawson family settled into their new normal. Olivia took a temporary break from teaching to care for Hope, but planned to return in the fall, with Mrs. Holloway continuing to help with the children. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over their land, Samuel reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "If that rattlesnake hadn't bitten me," he mused, "you might never have stopped at our cabin." "Or if Mrs. Holloway hadn't mentioned you needed help," Olivia added, adjusting Hope in her arms. "Or if you hadn't decided to bake bread that morning," Samuel continued with a smile. "I believe we would have found each other anyway," Olivia said thoughtfully. "Some things are simply meant to be." Samuel considered this, watching as the twins chased fireflies in the yard while Emma showed Daniel how to catch them in a jar. His family expanded, blended, stronger than he could have imagined a year ago when he was struggling alone. "I think you're right," he agreed, reaching for her hand. "Some things are meant to be, even if the path to finding them isn't what we expected." Like a school teacher from Boston becoming a rancher's wife and mother to 5 children in Wyoming, Olivia asked with a laugh. "Exactly like that," Samuel replied, leaning over to kiss her softly. "And I wouldn't change a single step of the journey that brought us here." As darkness fell and they gathered their children to go inside, Samuel paused to look at the wooden sign beside their door. The Dawsons. It no longer represented just survival or obligation, but a family bound by choice as well as circumstance, a family that had found its way through grief to joy, through loss to love. And it had all begun with a rattlesnake, 4 babies, and a woman who walked into their lives with a loaf of bread. 5 years later, in the spring of 1882, the Dawson homestead had transformed into a prosperous ranch. Additional rooms had been added to the cabin to accommodate their growing family, for Hope had been joined by a brother, Samuel Jr., born 2 years after her. The original 4 children had grown. The twins were now 8, Emma 7, and Daniel 5. All attended the school where Olivia still taught, riding there together each morning. On the anniversary of their wedding, Samuel surprised Olivia with a proper framed portrait of their entire family, taken during a trip to Cheyenne the previous month. It hung prominently in their living room, a testament to the life they had built together. "You ever regret it?" Samuel asked as they stood arm in arm, admiring the portrait. "Giving up the independence you came west to find?" Olivia turned to him, her eyes as bright and determined as they had been the day she'd saved his life. "I didn't give up independence, Samuel. I chose this life, chose you and the children. That choice itself was an act of independence." Samuel nodded, understanding. Still, teaching 7 children during the day and coming home to 7 more at night must be exhausting. Olivia laughed. "Only 6 at home now that the twins are helping more with the ranch," she corrected. "And I wouldn't trade a moment of it. Besides, this family gives me far more energy than it takes." As if to prove her point, Hope came running in, her dark hair flying behind her, clutching a bunch of wildflowers. "Mama, Papa, look what I found." "They're beautiful, sweetheart," Samuel said, lifting her into his arms. "Just like the ones Emma gave me the day I met your father," Olivia added, taking one of the flowers and tucking it behind her ear. Hope beamed. "Tell the story again, Papa." "About the snake and the bread, and how you fell in love with Mama." Samuel exchanged a smile with Olivia. It was Hope's favorite bedtime story, though they had softened the details of the snake bite for the younger children. "Well," Samuel began, settling into the rocking chair with Hope on his lap as the other children, sensing a story, gathered around. "It all started on a hot summer day in 1876, when a rattlesnake gave me the greatest gift of my life." As Samuel recounted their beginning, Olivia moved about the room, lighting lamps against the gathering dusk, pausing occasionally to add details to the story or correct Samuel's playful exaggerations. Their eyes met often, exchanging looks of love and shared memories. This was the life neither had imagined, but both had needed a life built on unexpected beginnings, mutual respect, and a love that had only deepened with each passing year. From the tragedy of loss had come the miracle of second chances, proving that even in the harsh realities of the Wyoming frontier, hope could bloom as surely as wildflowers after a spring rain, and it had all begun with a loaf of bread.